outlandish things are going on inside the psychedelic experience. It seems to imply the thing we had hardly dared hope, which is that the world is whatever you say it is if you know how to say it right. And then the whole task becomes, how do we take control of this language that allows us to say it right? I think I speak for most people here, serve the idea that matter is ultimately at the command of mind. But we need to move that forward as a demonstrable principle, because without that, the fear of most people is that we're imprisoned by physics in a sinking submarine. And yet when you go into these psychedelic spaces, what you discover is that all bets are off. That we can't even tell how weird it is. I mean, it may be possible to walk to Arcturus if you have the right set of coordinates. And the whole concern is to get the word out, to spread this meme, to empower people to confirm the existence of these realities for themselves, and to begin to form a kind of community consensus about it. You know, it's only, I guess in 1992, we will celebrate the 500th anniversary of the discovery of the New World. 500 years ago, people discovered the other half of this planet. And we're living there now. This is the New World. 500 years ago, this didn't exist. What existed was a vast cataract patrolled by sea monsters. And the oceans of the world poured off this cataract into the infinite abyss. And that was the edge of the world. We, the psychedelic people, are like these early explorers, coming back and saying, you know, I sailed west for 16 days and I didn't go mad. Instead, this is what happened. And I bring news of this, this, and this. And what we're accumulating are like the diaries of explorers. But there's a world there. It's a mental world, yes, but we are mental creatures. Take note of that. If we could go there, we would go there. And the thing is, we don't know that we can't go there. We have never taken the imagination seriously. We have never taken the self-management of culture seriously. We've always sort of thought things should just go along like a random walk. But now, because of the immense technical power that's come into our hands, the design process of the whole planet is now on our desk. And we're being asked to essentially step into stewardship of the entire planetary environment. We have to have then a vision. We have to have a dream. Not a vision or a dream, the vision, the dream. And it can't come from the personality of individual human beings. It has to come out of the bones of the planet. Yeah. And this is, I think, what the psychedelic experience is broadcasting. It's broadcasting the hologrammatic, fractal, altogether, all at once image of totality that our religions have sensed and called God, that the shaman have learned to use as a vast kind of computer for extracting information and for generating healing energy. But it is that there is some kind of controlling, minded, integrated thing behind nature. And we're not going to understand that this weekend, next week, or ever. This is not a relationship of solving a problem. It's a relationship of being an initiate of a mystery and then living your life, you know, in the light of that.
Apparently there is a great discovery or insight which our culture is deliberately designed to suppress, distort, and ignore. And this is the discovery that nature is some kind of minded entity, that nature is not simply, the random flight of atoms through electromagnetic fields. Nature is not the empty, despiritualized lumpen matter that we inherit from modern physics, but it is instead a kind of intelligence, a kind of mind. And as long as we were embedded in this mind, as long as we were a part of its purposes and processes, harmony existed on this planet between human beings and the rest of nature, between men and women, between adults and children, and within the human individual. And the reason that this harmony was able to maintain itself for perhaps 25 times the duration of history is because it honored and balanced all the components that created it.
Nature is not mute. You really have to have worked yourself into a weird place to believe that, In fact, nature is entirely something else. Nature is communication, because nature is psyche. This is what we haven't understood. We have somehow talked ourselves into the belief that into the natural world of Eden, God came and made man, and from man woman, and that men and women are of so ontologically a different level than the rest of nature that no conclusion about us can be drawn from an examination of nature. Nothing could, it's impossible for me to understand how this idea persists and has such momentum in the 20th century, where hierarchy theory has very, very clearly explicated the notion of the linkage of higher order systems to subsystems that are physically more simple. So you see, really what we have is a kind of fractal universe. In fact, it's not greatly different from the alchemical view of the 16th century, where people said, as above, so below. The microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm. What this is really saying is that at the level of a planet, you get a certain level of organization and spectrum of peripheral effects. The same thing, such as self-reflection, self-regulation, intent, goal projection, steering toward perceived goals. You get the same kind of thing on the level of a society. Can be a beehive or a herd of antelope or whatever, and you get it in the human individual and the human society. So really what is to be seen is that we are the cutting edge of becoming. We are not a thing apart. We are a unique level of a multi-leveled organism. And we have been called forth out of nature, by nature, for a purpose. And what is our task as individuals, I think, is to discover what that purpose is, and then to align ourselves with it in a way which allows the plan, whatever it is, to most smoothly unfold. Well, what it seems to be is a progressive invocation of spirit, the theme with which I began the evening, that through language, through abstraction, through magical invocation, the formulation of religions, the projection of art, the field phenomena, the phenomena which are diffuse in space and time and not easily located, are forcing or intruding their way into three-dimensional space and time. but it's very hard to avoid the impression of some kind of attractor ahead of this planet, embedded in its history, and somehow channeling everything toward it, so that the progressive acceleration of human society, of information production, of communication, the proliferation of languages, natural and synthetic, all of these things are not something going on in the human domain and somehow sealed from the general state of nature, but are in fact part of the general state of nature. And the human experience, or the human animal, as the carrier of this catalytic process, this speeding up and accelerating a process on the surface of the planet, is not sealed from nature, but the leading edge.